is the most beautiful racetrack in America, hands down.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the breeding stock sale. Book one. Good to have you back with us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Jeremy Plunk, horse player now, with you again for the Keeneland look ahead as we get set for week 2 of the fall meet at Great Keeneland. What an opening week we had, Fall Stars weekend. Todd Pletcher had himself a weekend, didn't he? 3 Grade 1 victories. Malathaat, of course, winning the Juddmonte Spinster. And what a throwdown we had with Forte and Loggins in the Breeders' Futurity on Saturday. Just a big weekend. A lot of Breeders' Cup feel about it. Now as we get to week number 2, we still have a little Breeders' Cup feel with the Sycamore Stakes on Friday, the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup on Saturday, but we're more about the nuts and bolts of Kentucky racing now as we get into week 2 and into the 3rd and 4th week of this Keeneland meet, and that'll change what we see on the racetrack just a little bit. Just some observations from week 1 before we get into tomorrow's card. Of course, Wednesday racing at Keeneland, 8-race card beginning at 1 o'clock. But looking back to opening weekend, a couple observations I had. The turf course was extremely fast. We saw a lot of stakes records. We're not used to seeing a fast turf course this time of year. In fact, firm turf at Keeneland in the fall is, I used to say it's just going to start it good and go down from there, but we've had fast times on the turf course, and it's played out differently on the racetrack as well. The 7 of the 9 turf winners opening weekend were horses right up there, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4 lengths off the pace. Only 2 winners came from farther back than that on the turf, and the average turf winner was 2 1/4 lengths off the pace after the opening half mile, regardless of distance. That's usually about 3.5 to 3 3/4, so that's quite a sizable cut from past fall meets on where the horses come from on the turf course. Will it remain that way over the next couple of weeks? Mother Nature is going to have a big say in that. How much rain do we get over the course of the weeks to come? We're looking for good weather tomorrow at Keeneland, so let's knock on wood for that. Other observations, Alstall Jr.'s horses are off to a really good start. He won with 3, and Pletcher won 3 as well opening weekend. They were all grade 1 winners for Pletcher. For Al Stall, it showed a little more depth to the stable. He wanted the maiden level. He wanted the allowance level. He wanted the claiming level. So Stall's horses are kind of clicking everywhere, whereas Pletcher brought in some heavyweights and they delivered. So a little bit different. We're going to see some Al Stall horses here on Wednesday's card and throughout the week, of course, and we'll see how he and Pletcher continue on. One thing we do know, the allowance races were just dominated by the Churchill Downs preppers. So if you're looking at any allowance race here over the next couple days, probably start with the Churchill horses and then work backwards from there. They seem to own the roost, and we're going to have more of the overnight kind of races, starter allowance, maiden claimers, straight claiming races. And I think we'll start to see some of those other circuits, perk up here. But Churchill's allowance horses were just absolutely dominant during the first 3 days of racing. We talked about an 8-race card on Saturday. We'll get to 10-race cards on Thursday and Friday, but an 8-race card on Wednesday. And as we take a look at the big picture and give you that overview of the entire program, here's how it looks on an 8-race schedule at Keeneland for tomorrow's program on Wednesday. Pick 5 opens in race number 1. We'll have the early pick 4 start in race number 2. That's all normal. Pick 6 is going to get underway in race number 3 because it'll be races 3 through 8, of course, with that shortened and condensed card. Races 4 and 5, I got the word swing next to them. There's a reason for that. They are swing races as part of both the early and late pick 5. So if you're looking at the pick 5 starting in race number 4, that's the late pick 5. Remember, the 4th race will be part of the pick 5 that starts in race number 1. Same goes for the 5th race, where that'll be the second leg of the late pick 5, and it'll be the final leg of the early pick 5 on races 1 through 5. And of course, that pick 4 that starts in race number 2 goes through 2 through 5. The late pick 4 starts 5 through 8. So 4 and 5 are two races that you really have to do your homework on these 8 race cards. Can't emphasize it enough. They're swing races because they're part of all the different sequences. 5th race on the card is everything, folks. It's in the early pick 5, the late pick 5, the early pick 4, and the late pick 4. And of course, it's part of the pick 6. So 5th race, if you can iron out an opinion that you have there, you feel kind of good about your day. Well, looky here at my key plays today. I've got a long shot in race number 5 that I'm liking, who is 15-1 in the morning line. And that's part of every multi-race sequence. So do I get excited about a card like this when I see a horse I like at a price in a sequence that you can get to just about any direction on your GPS? Absolutely. We'll tell you who that horse is in race number 5 coming up in a bit as we go through each and every race on the card. Want to note there is no Keeneland Turf Pick 3 on Wednesday. The Keeneland Turf Pick 3, of course, requires 3 turf races. We only have 2 scheduled, and on Thursday, there's only going to be 1 turf race. So the next Keeneland Turf Pick 3 you can check in with is on Friday, and of course, entries are already out for that Friday card that includes the Sycamore Stakes. So if you like betting the Keeneland Turf Pick 3, you're on hiatus for the next couple days. But we got 2 turf races to dig into on this Wednesday card. My key plays, I mentioned the second one sequentially coming up in race number 5. Got a horse I really like in race number 4 as well. So 4 and 5, I told you, were the key races that you really want to have an opinion on. Just so happens today that I do. Some days it doesn't work out that way, but I do on Wednesday. So we will definitely talk about those 2 races, and that's going to get me excited to get into those multi-race wagers. And my final key play in race number 7, there's a morning line favorite in there that I think is a little vulnerable, and we might be able to catch a price in a big field. We'll tell you about that one. It's also a sequence in race number 7 that doesn't play kindly to favorites historically. And you know I like the stats and trends. You can check out my blog at Keeneland.com in the expert selectors picks section. That blog will give you all the stats and trends that I look at through the Keeneland database that I helped create about 16, 17 years ago now. But we use that to try to look at the trends and see what works in these different kind of races. One of the profiles for race number 7 today is the favorites have struggled mightily over the years. We'll tell you about that when we get to it. Let's get to handicapping now on race number 1 on this Thursday card and look at the handicapper selectors box. You can get these picks as well. The expert picks page at Keeneland.com. Download those. This is just a screenshot right off the website. There's also a printable version there that you can print out. I keep my printable version in front of me as well. I like to have the hard copy. You'll notice in race number 1 that there are 5 public handicappers, of course. Scott, Tom, myself, Gabby, and Kim. And there are 5 different horses picked on top in this race by number, the 1, 3, 5, 6, and 8. That tells you it's a wide open race. What tells you it's a wide open day is 4 races on this card have 5 different horses picked by the 5 public handicappers. Races 1, 2, 3, and 8. We all have different, or 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 5, and 8. Let me get this right. Races 1, 2, 5, and 8. If you look across the lines, you're going to find we all have different horses picked on top. Half the card, the public handicappers have no consensus whatsoever. So this tells you it's going to be a great wide open day of betting. That third race on the card, everybody's got Messiah Warrior. So the reason that I give this handicapper selectors box is kind of to play my ideas off the other handicappers and give you some other alternatives as well. But it gives you a sense of where we're all leaning. And on a day when there are 4 different races where we pick 5 different horses on top, that Messiah Warriors picked straight across in race number 3, that kind of tells you when we go back to the big picture and we're looking at how do we strategize and put together tickets for that early pick 5, early pick 4, the pick 6. Race number 3 is the one we all agree on. So is that the single that we're looking for in the early pick 4 and early pick 5? If you like that horse, then that's obviously one we focused in on. If you don't like Messiah Warrior in race number 3 on Wednesday's card, then you're going to be against the public where a lot of people are going to be singling. And if you can get that horse beat and you have a good alternative to Messiah Warrior in race number 3, that's going to blow up your payoffs for sure, because that's going to be a horse heavily singled by a lot of tickets in the pick 4s and pick 5s based on what we see from the handicapper selectors box. So let's go to race number 1 now. 6.5 furlongs. This is a dual condition claimer. I call it a dual condition claimer because there's 2 different ways you can be eligible for this. It's for horses who are 3-year-olds and up, which have never won 3 races lifetime. Or if you're a 3-year-old, you can win as many races as you want. It's not restricted to the non-winners of 3 condition. So dual condition claimers, and we've had these quite a bit at Keeneland over the last couple years. And the horses from Churchill have done exceptionally well in the dual condition claimers here at the Keeneland meet, and as well as the Churchill horses ran opening week at various levels. That might be a good place to start your handicapping. I did go with one of the Churchill horses. It's editorial comment, not because the horse came in from Churchill so much as making a huge drop in class here. This is a Kenny McPeak trainee coming out of the Harrods Creek Stakes, ran in the Mahoney for turf sprinters up at Saratoga in the summer. This is a big class drop. This is just a far easier field. Outside draw. It's not a big field in terms of size, 8-horse field with 6.5 furlongs, a little bit longer run to the first turn. So I'm not worried about the outside post so much, and I think the horse can stay clear on the outside, and we'll see what editorial comments got on the class drop. This is a race where I do not have a strong feel, and as you look at the other public handicappers, there is no strong field to find here. If you do, you're going to be on an island yourself, and certainly dive in when you feel like you have the edge. That's what it's all about. Where your strongest opinions are is where you got to put your most money and where you've got to dive in. If this is a race where everybody's kind of wishy-washy and we're looking at an 8-horse field with a 5-2 favorite and a bunch of horses around 3, 4, 5, 6-1, if you got a horse you really like and you think this horse should be the play and they're going off 3rd, 4th choice, an overlay in a race like this is just as good as an overlay in any major Breeders' Cup race. 6-1 pays 6-1 anywhere if you think the horse should be 3-1. So keep an eye on the tote. Do your handicapping and your due diligence in here. But this is not an easy one to get started with. I will say early speed did very well at Keeneland opening week. Of the dirt sprint races, there were 17 of them. 14 of the winners were within a length and 3/4 of the lead after the opening half mile. So I think you want a horse with some forward speed. And again, we talked about the Churchill horses running well. So editorial comment at this class level would be one. Arthurian is a horse maybe with some early speed from Indiana Grand to take in to some consideration. Classic King down on the inside. It's coming off a win at Belterra. This is just a mixed bag race, folks. I mean, for me, it's not a strong play. And it's not one where I'm going to dive in to the pick 5s and pick 4s unless I can pick 5 at least. Pick 4 doesn't start till race 2. But I'm not going to dive into the pick 5 unless I can find something in races 2 through 5 now, because race 1 is not one where I really want to get invested heavily in the pick 5. But if I can focus on the other races and use several combinations in the opener, maybe it becomes playable then. Let's go to race number 2 on the program and look at the public selectors. Again, 5 different picks from 5 different handicappers. You've got them numerically from Tom with the 3. Scott's got the 4. The 7 to Gabby. I've got the 10, Uptown Hustler, and Azuro the 12 for Kim. So we are all over the board here again in race number 2 as we kick off the early pick 4. Early pick 4 again will be races 2 through 5. And in this one, this is a race where Wesley Ward with the maiden claimer sprinters has done really well here over the years. Nobody's won more maiden claiming races at the fall meets than Wesley Ward. We talk about the strengths. We know Ward's really good with the 2-year-olds. We know he's really good with the turf sprinters, but he does well with the maiden claimers too, the class droppers. And that's why I went with Uptown Hustler in here. It's Irad Ortiz, and this horse takes a class drop. It's a maiden claimer now. The turf to dirt move may worry you a little bit. This horse has run on turf both times and now going to the dirt. But of those 9 wins in the fall meet that he's had with maiden claimers, Wesley Ward, we're talking about, 5 of those 9 were horses making a turf to dirt switch. He's done this before. He knows which ones can make the ship or make the switch. And so I'm going with Uptown Hustler in here for Ward. That's going to be my top choice. But again, this is not like a majorly high confidence pick in here. Beyond Uptown Hustler, Conspiracy Fact, the 3. Horse Tom Leach has on top is one I give consideration to. Al Stahl Jr., the trainer for Conspiracy Fact, and we talked about Al Stahl having a really big opening weekend. 3 wins for Al Stahl. They were at 3 different class levels. All of his horses are running. Conspiracy Fact, certainly one you want to consider. And there was a maiden claimer opening week. This is a maiden claimer that Al Stahl won at 8-1 odds. So he's one with horses eligible for this kind of condition already at the meet. So Conspiracy Facts, certainly a horse you want to use. I think the 10 and the 3, if you want to get to the 12, Azuro, that's more of a stretch play for me. I think it's more of a 2-deep situation in race number 2. So while we're thinking spread in race number 1 and not a high confidence factor, I do think if you can get to the 10 and the 3 that you're safe in my book in race number 2. And that's no disrespect to Gabby, who's got the 7, Kim, who's got the 12, and Scott, who's got the 4 in here. A practical sense. There are some options to turn, but you can't use them all, folks. I mean, if you're playing 5x6, by 7, by 5 kind of tickets, you need to catch some big balloons in order to make up for a lot of losses over time. So for me in race number 2, I would just go 2 deep. Uptown Hustler, Conspiracy Fact, start the pick 4 2 deep. Second leg of the pick 5 2 deep. And as we get to race number 3, it's the start of the pick 6 in race number 3. It's also part of the early pick 4 and pick 5. And this is where we have pretty much the universal single for everybody in the handicapper selectors box. It's Maasai Warrior, the best bet of the day, according to the public consensus. If you put us together here, everybody's got the 8 on top. Certainly some different looks underneath, a lot of numbers showing up underneath. So if you're looking at exactas and tries in a deep field with a capacity field here, a 12 with some also eligibles in race number 3, could still be a good betting race, intra race. You're not going to get a big price on Maasai Warrior. Brad Cox trainee will be heavily bet in here. Coming out of a mile at Churchill Downs, stretching out to a mile and a 16. You know, I've said this on the podcast over the past 2 meets, but I do like these 1-turn mile horses at Churchill when they go a mile and a 16th. At Keeneland, you know, that Churchill, the 1-turn mile kind of leans a little bit on speed and horses who are tactical. The 2-turn mile and a 16th here at Keeneland then extends them around 2 bends, but again, they get the safety net with the 16th pole being the finish line for the mile and a 16th races. So they don't have to have the full stretch run. They just need to turn for home and have a little bit left and hang on. So I think Maasai Warrior is going to get it done here on the class drop for Brad Cox. You know, Brad's done well with horses dropping from maiden special to maiden claiming. He's got good stats overall in that. He's a 36% trainer from dropping maiden special to maiden claimer. All adds up here. I think Maasai Warrior gets it done. It gets a field that's, you know, not that incredibly deep, but single that one for the multi-race wagers. If you're playing intra-race bets, the 4 King Doodle's interesting. This is into Mischief, making a second start here at Keeneland. Didn't show anything in their career debut, but Ricky Corville brings this one back from Louisiana. Some connections, had a little bit of success here last fall. They're going to take another shot. The outside horse, Liam the Brave, makes sense for Michael Ann Ewan. She's a good trainer here at Keeneland over the years. Doesn't have a lot of horses, but has had a little bit of success here and there. Tends to get hot, and when the barn's hot, she does well here at Keeneland. This horse ran decent with a little bit of speed for maiden special last time at Indiana Grand, or Horseshoe Indianapolis now that it's called. So I'm not wild about the horses underneath with a ton of confidence, but the 12 and the 4 are a couple I would consider underneath if you're looking at the intra-race plays in the 3rd race on Wednesday. To the 4th we go, and race number 4 is one of the swing races. Again, this is part of the pick 5 in the early version. It's part of the pick 5 on the late version. It starts the late pick 5 in race number 4 because of our 8-race sequence. It's also the first of my key plays on the program. And so in race number 4, I've got a 9-2 shot in the morning line that I like in here named One More Baby. And Tom Leach is also going with One More Baby. And you've got Scott picking the 3 second. Gabby's got One More Baby third. Kim's going elsewhere, but One More Baby for me. I really like him this spot. Off the claim for trainer Robertino Diodoro. He wins well off the claim, moves up horses typically. This is one that I think last time out at Saratoga going the mile. That was that pseudo 2-turn race at Saratoga, starting on the elbow start on the first turn, and it was an outside post that day. So One More Baby was disadvantaged by the post position at Saratoga last time. Now gets the 3-hole. There's not a ton of speed to the inside. The 2 Sano Grotto has no early foot whatsoever. The 1 Coastal Chaos may come out of there, coming out of a 3-turn race at Charlestown, but it's a little quicker go than the 3-turn mile and a 16th at Charlestown in the maiden ranks. So I think One More Baby is probably the fastest of the horses in the first 3 posts, able to get out, get over to the rail, and get good position under Rafael Santana. Just a good Ricardo Santana, I should say. Rafael Santana. I think that was a baseball player back in the day. Ricardo Santana I'm talking about here. Ricardo Santana is good front end jock and hustles them out of the gate. Not a lot of speed in the 4-hole, the 5. So I think One More Baby gets out, gets position, gets over to the rail. And again, we're using the short stretch 16th pole finish line here. So I like the 3-horse One More Baby as my key play early in the card. and I'm going to be singling this one. This is my single in the multi-race wager. So we have to spread in the opener if you want to play the Pick 5, because I don't have a lot of confidence there. I think we can kind of go too deep in the second leg. I think we single Messiah Warrior, and I think we come back, and our bold single here to keep our ticket more focused is the single again with One More Baby. And this is the horse I really like, and I think we're going to get a middling price. If not 9-2, 3-4-1, I don't think this horse is going to get bet hard. So I'm really looking forward to the fourth race on the program, leaning on this one as a back-to-back single. Everybody's going to be singled in the third. Not everybody, but the horse most singled in the sequence will be in race number 3. But if we can single in race number 4, we're going to separate ourselves from the public a little bit as well, who are going to go with more combinations in a big 12-horse field than likely singling. So that's the way we're going to take our shot in race number 4, swing race in the early pick 5 and the late pick 5 and part of that early pick 4. Back to the big picture we go, because we've got another key play here in race number 5. It's our first of 2 turf races, split divisions of a turf race here for entry-level allowance race in race number 5 and 8. Basically the same horses. They had so many enter, they split it up into 2 races. If you ever hear the term split division, that's what we're talking about here. The race was so popular at the entry box, they said, hey, we could run 2 out of this, and that's what we've got on the card. A mile for first-level allowance horses on the turf, race number 5. And in this spot, I think my long shot play is a horse named Script. Script is 15-1 in the morning line. I've got him on top. He's the 5 horse. Only one other mention of Script amongst the other public handicappers. Scott's given that one a shot to run second. So it tells me we're probably going to get our price. We may not get all of 15-1, but I think we'll get a good enough price here. Script hasn't tried the turf yet, but Graham Motion trains on the synthetic at Fair Hill in Maryland. And if he's bringing this one over to run in a first-level allowance race, I think you ought to pay attention. No trainer has won more fall meet allowance races for these first-level turf horses than Graham Motion. He's won 10 of them. Nobody else is even close. So Motion has horses eligible for this condition. First level means you've only won a maiden race. You haven't won another allowance yet to this point. He has horses with that condition available. Circles the date at Keeneland, trains for it, sets up for it. Script has been off since February and shows up here at Keeneland in the fall. Very bold placement. I like this. I'm bullish on this kind of thing. And of those 10 winners that he's had in the first level allowance races on turf in the fall meets in the past, 2 of them were horses that were off February to October, just like Script. He's done it before, and I think Graham Motion might be able to pull it off again. He's an excellent trainer, off to a good start opening weekend. Had a winner, another horse hit the board in a limited number of starters. So John Velasquez rides. It's Script for me as the long shot play in race number 5. If we can get this one home, we're looking good, because it's a swing race. We said race number 5 is about everything, right? I mean, to go back and review, early pick 5, the race number 5 is the last leg. Early pick 4, race number 5 is the last leg. In the late pick 5, race number 5 is the second leg. And in the late pick 4, race number 5 is the kickoff leg. It swings all multi-race wagers throughout the course of the day. The pick 4s, the pick 5s, the pick 6. One of our 2 turf races. So if we can get Script, I don't even care if we get the 15-1 in the morning line. I mean, I'm not going to argue if they give us 15-1. If we get 15-1, we're going to take it, right? But if we don't get 15-1, I still like this horse, at a fair price in that 8 to 10-1 range. Velasquez Motion, they may not get let go at the whole 15-1. But again, this horse is going to be a healthy price. Running at Parks and Laurel, running on the dirt, not running since February. There's going to be enough skepticism to keep this horse at least 8 to 10-1. I can't see the horse getting bet less than that. But I think we're going to get our price, and Script is the one who could really, really make our day in all these multi-race wagers. Now, would I lean on this horse strictly as a single? Probably not, and I won't. But I do think Mazuma, the 1's got a shot from off the pace to get in there. I think you want to also give a consideration to the 11, Mom's Moon for Rusty Arnold. Hasn't run since the Palm Beach, but this horse was meant to be something, winning during the championship meet at Gulfstream Park, going wire to wire from the 12 hole. That showed talent for Mom's Moon back in January. So I think this is a horse who comes back fresh. One thing about the turf miles at Keeneland, we see it in the spring a lot, not as much in the fall. But in the spring, we get horses off long layoffs win turf miles all the time. It's like the preferred spot for comeback horses off the bench. First start of the year is a turf mile at Keeneland. So horses like Script, Mom's Moon, maybe some others that you see throughout maybe other races on the card, Master of the Ring in this particular race. I wouldn't be too worried about a turf mile off the layoff at Keeneland. Horses handle it, and they handle it with a plum in the spring. Not as much in the fall, but again, we've seen Motion do it twice with the February to October layoff with this exact same race condition. I'm on Script. Let's see what happens. That's the 5-horse in race number 5. Back to the big board we go for the 6th race on the card. And 6th race here, as we take a look, is beyond the start of any of the big multi-race wagers because we only have 8 races on the program. So this is going to kick off the late pick 3, the final pick 3 on the card, I should say. And in race number 6, there's a horse in here who's a first-time starter that I'm going to make a little pedigree play with. I thought I was being slick, but then my buddy Scott Hazelton came right in with the same one. So Soul Titles Ready is the pick for Scott and I in post number 2. Tell you why in just a moment. But beyond this one, it's another wide open kind of race. We've got the 4, the 6, and the 12 all getting selections from our public handicappers. So amongst the 5 of us, we've got 4 different horses on top. Scott and I both on the 2 Soul Titles Ready. Now, Soul Titles Ready is a horse who's well drawn in the 2-hole. Tyler Gaffleone rides first-time start for Dallas Stewart. This isn't a jock-trainer combo that you see a lot. They're live when they're together. They win 22% together, 29% at Keeneland over the years, according to the DRF stats. So when Gaffleone rides for Dallas Stewart, that's a good sign. And when he rides for a first-time starter, I think that's a very good sign because Dallas Stewart's not the kind of barn that comes popping out with big first-time starters. But this horse had a really good workout at Churchill October the 3rd. I love the pedigree. The sire more than ready for a 7-furlong race like this is big. And then on the dam side, just a really regal pedigree here. The 3rd dam is Personal Ensign, the legendary Hall of Famer. And she's been such a great broodmare over the years and had so many influences, not just first generation, but beyond. So I think there could be a real class factor with Soul Titles Ready, the 2. I like the post position. You don't have the rail, but you're still inside. I think that's good. And the horse has speed from the couple gate works and has speed on the fly, 47-4 at Churchill for the work. So Soul Titles Ready, first-time starter. The great granddaughter of Personal Ensign, I think, is one that we want to keep an eye on. There's some good pedigrees in this race, of course. We've got Mahia, the 6, and nobody's going back with this one second time. Do we have anybody taking Mia on top? Yeah, Gabby's going with Mia on top. Mia's a curling filly who's out of Rachel's Valentina, who was a really nice win early type daughter of the great Rachel Alexandra. So this is a granddaughter of Rachel Alexandra, the Mia. And Mia was bet to, 7-5 in the career debut. Didn't run well in that one. We'll see if she's got a better second effort for trainer Todd Pletcher, who again won 3 grade run races opening weekend. So if his horses are firing, it will be no surprise. Mia, certainly a regal pedigree to keep in mind in here for sure. Her Ladyship is one who's got a really nice pedigree, a half sister to Spielberg, who was a really nice 2-year-old for Baffert some years ago out in California. Win early type. Spielberg didn't go on to greatness, but he was good right out of the blocks. So Her Ladyship might be a horse to 10 in here who can run a bit right out of the box. And then you got Brad Cox with the Alley's Look, a first-time starter. Cox won a similar race with, Hot Show, I believe was the name of the horse. Hit Show. Hit Show won a similar race to this opening week for Brad Cox, a 7-furlong, 2-year-old maiden special. So would be no surprise to see the Alley's Look run well. And Diamonds If You Do, a first-time starter in here who needs to be considered as well. I've got this one second. Diamonds If You Do, also picked second by Kim Nelson. This is a Nyquist $300,000 2-year-old in training purchase. So that's a lot to pay for a Nyquist the way they sell. And so this might be a ready-made, ready-to-go horse for Graham Motion. The works say yes, a fast workout from the gate here, 46-3. We've got Motion in race number, 5 with Script. I would not be shocked if Graham goes back-to-back with Diamonds If You Do in here. So this is a race to spread a little bit. I think you definitely want to get through at least the top 3 that I have. And I think Mia's one that you could also throw in there. Her Ladyship one to consider. So I think 4 or 5 deep if you're playing Race number 6 here in the multi-race wagers. The 6th race, follows the second leg of the pick 4, the third leg of the late pick 5. So it's going to hit all those multi-race wagers. But this is the one race that I think on the card that there are good options to spread. Sometimes you hear the term, this is a wide open race. It's a spread race. It's because you can't find anybody you like. Similar to race from number 1, to be honest, on the card here for Wednesday. That's one of those races where there's no good opinion because there's no good opinion to find. Race number 6, on the other hand, is also a very good spread race, but because there's good options that abound, and there's 5, 6 horses, I think that you can make a really good case for in that maiden special for the 2-year-old. So same result, you might want to spread your ticket, but for different reasons. And for me, I like to spread more in races where there are good options than spread in races where there just aren't really anything good to pick. For me, that's almost default gambling. I like to have an opinion and back the opinion, not default into horses. Let's go to the 7th on the program. Race number 7 is 1 mile and a 16th on the main track. 2-year-old allowance race. We had 3 of these opening week. 2-year-old allowance races, all won by front end speed. I think you want to get out there. We told you the Churchill horses were exceptional in the allowance races on dirt opening week. They won 5 of 6. So horses who come from Churchill Downs should be considered armed and dangerous in this spot, and horses who have a little bit of early speed as well. In this 2-year-old allowance race, maybe we'll see a horse out of here for something like the Kentucky Jockey Club a little bit later in the fall at Churchill Downs, and we'll see if we can develop a horse into that Bluegrass series as we get towards the Bluegrass in the spring. These are distance 2-year-olds with some good pedigrees, top connections in here. We could certainly see these horses on the path to the Bluegrass by the time the spring meet rolls around. I ended up going in here with Bourbon Spirit. It's not a Churchill horse, but it is a horse with some early pace to follow the profile. Set the pace in the Sapling Stakes and ended up finishing second to Lost Ark in there. Brad Cox, the trainer, he won a similar race to this with Key of Life. If you remember how well Key of Life looked in opening weekend, winning allowance company, just like this. My own 16th 2-year-old allowance race. Key of Life ran off and hid. Brad comes back with Bourbon Spirit here, a horse who's already been to the stakes ranks. So I think that's something that you want to keep in mind. And this horse, like I said, out of the stakes races, we've had 14 of these 2-year-old routes run during fall meets in the past. These maiden special dirt, or not maiden special, these allowance dirt route 2-year-old races. 2-year-olds going long in allowance company to make it a little simpler. 14 of them. 6 of those winners were horses that dropped out of stakes races back into the allowance company. So having that early stakes experience in your career and then coming back to the allowance ranks has been favorable in this situation 6 of the 14 times in the past. So we'll keep that in mind. And Bourbon Spirit coming out of a good effort in the Sapling Stakes at Monmouth fits that same kind of bill. Another horse who comes out of that form of going from a stakes race back into allowance races, Hayes Strike for Kenny McPeak. This is a horse who kind of pressed the pace and then ended up 4th in an even effort, if you will, in the Iroquois Stakes. Was 57-1 that day, was probably overmatched, but a good winner in maiden company prior to that, and now back at the level where the horse really fits. And the one thing I like about Hayes Strike in here, and this is why we go back to the big board where I think we have a vulnerable favorite. The favorite in the morning line in this race is the other Kenny McPeak trainee, Frank's Honor. Frank's Honor is the morning line favorite, ridden last time to victory by Brian Hernandez Jr. for Kenny McPeak. Brian Hernandez has opted to ride Hayes Strike in here. He's jumping off the horse who is deemed the morning line favorite. Favorites have not had a really good profile in this race over the years. So I'm looking for these kind of races over the years. So I'm looking for an upset in here. Let's try to knock off Frank's Honor, who's the morning line favorite. And we're going to do it with the Brad Cox trainee, Bourbon Spirit, and the 10 Hayes Strike. Todd Pletcher's got the 1 Forbidden Secret, a horse who's probably going to get some play. Just the New York bred in terms of the race classes that this one's been running in, but has run well, comes off a nice win last time, knocked on the door the time prior to that. Won at the Belmont at Aqueduct meeting at 55 cents on the dollar, so expected to punch him out last time and did so. It's Pletcher and Ortiz, so even if the McPeak horse doesn't go favorite that we're trying to knock off, I think they're going to bet Forbidden Secret a little bit in here as well. Brad Cox with Bourbon Spirit's not going to go off a big price. Who am I kidding, right? I mean, he's going to get bet a little bit too. But I think we're looking at, maybe a 3-1 shot, 5-2, 3-1, something like that. And if we can get that, Hayes Strike is probably the one that's going to offer the more value, 4th in the Iroquois. But again, at 57-1, I like that Hernandez jumped off the other McPeak, Frank's Honor, to ride this one, Hayes Strike. So let's try to knock off Frank's Honor. We'll use Bourbon Spirit. We'll use Haste Strike. If you feel bold, then you have to use Todd Pletcher, or not bold. If you feel sheepish and feel like you just have to use the Todd Pletcher horse, then go ahead and add him to your ticket. But that wouldn't be my recommendation. I'm going to try to get by with two deep. I'm going to try to beat the morning line favorite. I'm going to try to beat the Pletcher horse. But I'm using Brad Cox to do it, and I'm using the other McPeak. So it's not like we're spitting in the wind here. We're taking people who are well backed often. So those are the options for me. I think Bourbon Spirit to 2, Haste Strike to 10, and race number 7, the final of my 3 key plays. We go to the final race, and we're back on the turf in race number 8 on this 8-race card. Again, no Keeneland turf pick 3 because our only 2 grass races are races 5 and 8. And in the finale, once again, the 5 public handicappers have found 5 different ways to skin the cat. I've got the 3 Rhetoric, Legionnaire, the 4 for Scott, Bay Street Money for Tom, the 5, the 7 Coleridge for Kim Nelson, and the 12 Britain's Kitten for Gabby Gaudette. So we are going 5 different ways here. We will see how that turns out. For me, Rhetoric, why do I have Rhetoric? I like the pedigree in here, plain and simple. This is a quality road colt out of Hard Not to Like. Hard Not to Like is a mare who did big things. She won multiple grade 1 races, and she won the Jenny Wiley right here at Keeneland over this turf course. So while Rhetoric has never raced on a turf course yet, she's run 4 times in Southern California, all on dirt. She hasn't run bad in those. She has a win, a third, 2/3, in fact, from her 4 career starts. I think she's going to handle the turf in this allowance race, I should say. And Rhetoric's going to handle the turf here in this allowance race because his mama sure liked it, and there's the pedigree for it by Quality Road, again, out of Hard Not to Like, who's a really good turf mare. And again, won the Jenny Wiley right over this track. Other horses I have to consider, Coleridge, a horse who won at Gulfstream back in January for Bill Mott, comes off the long layoff. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a split division of race number 5. And in that race, I took a horse off a February layoff. If you like Coleridge and you like the way this horse stacks up, the way he's been training, you like Mott, you like the Uncle Mo and Empire Maker pedigree, don't be afraid of the layoff. That's the bottom line. In a turf mile at Keeneland, horses went off the layoff often. So I have no problem with that whatsoever. Also threw in Bay Street Money, a horse just kind of knocking around, had a lot of starts, a lot of seconds and thirds. For me, Bay Street Money is picked 3rd in this race, but not a horse I would use on top in the multi-race wagers. I would let that one beat me at 1 for 13 lifetime with 5 seconds. If Bay Street Money wins, I'll lose in that spot. But I think for underneath, if you're looking for, seconds, thirds, fourths for exotic wagers in this race, I think Bay Street Money's playable. But for me, it's Rhetoric and Coleridge. I would only go 2 deep in here, 3 and 7, the way I wrap things up in the 8th and final race. My compatriots have a much more wide open view of this race than I do. We will find out who's right. And if we're right, we'll collect. And if we're wrong, it's the 8th race on the card. And thankfully, the day will be over and we can look forward to the next card on Thursday if we can't pull it out. But that's a look at the 8-race card on this Wednesday program coming up at Keeneland. Again, first post time is at 1 o'clock. Pretty quick podcast tonight. Let you know that if you want to see more Keeneland coverage, be sure to go to the YouTube page, Keeneland Fan at YouTube, and you can get a lot of interviews from Tom Leach. They've got a lot of the stakes results from the weekend and the interviews from the connections. If you're a Breeders' Cup handicapper, certainly check that stuff out because we had a ton of Breeders' Cup win and you're in races and preps over the weekend to start your handicapping and working forward to the Breeders' Cup World Championships, now just a little over, 3.5 weeks away. It'll be 3 weeks from Friday. Will be Breeders' Cup Friday. So a lot going on at Keeneland, and hopefully you'll join us for the live racing beginning at 1 o'clock Eastern. I'll be back tomorrow night. Let's see. I got to get my day straight. Tomorrow will be Wednesday night, and at 8:30, we'll be back to look at the Thursday card. So we've got a 10-race Thursday card to look at tomorrow evening. On behalf of everybody at Keeneland and Horse Player Now, I'm Jeremy Plunk. Have a great night. We'll check in with you again tomorrow night. First post tomorrow, Keeneland at 1 o'clock Eastern.